Yo, is the audio fine? Can you hear me, guys? I hope there isn't. Oh, I hope there isn't any. Uh, Wait, I think I had it too loud. It was. Uh, no skipping or anything. Looks fine. Wait, I can lower the threshold. Just a second. Uh, is this? I think this might be. Uh, just a second. Is this better? Is the gate better now? You can probably hear my chair squeaking, but yeah, we can live with that. Great. So, let's start. You can see here, I have my project all in nice colors, ready. I'm gonna first do a quick overview of everything, and then I'll be going into more detail later. So, let's just see everything that's in this project. This is an empty track, let's ignore that. We have some opera vocals. This is just a library from orchestral tools. Then we have some synthesizers. Just a bass, then a pad, and a lead synth. These are all done in Massive X, which takes a while to open. And these are just presets, some are slightly edited. I mean, I have a ton of these, so I find something useful every time. A pad, this is just regular massive, and a lead, which is also Massive X by Native Instruments. Then I have the bass track and lots of guitars. The red tracks, those are all guitars. Then the orchestra and all the orchestral stuff, as you can see. Some of these tracks I could have hidden, but I'm still arranging my presets, so there's a ton of empty space. I need to sort it out. Then we have, now this may seem like a lot of tracks. These are just contact libraries, but I'm actually only using 2 of these. So the rest isn't loaded or anything. Just my contact preset. And finally the drums. The blue tracks. The dark blue tracks. These are drums. And here I have some reverbs, but I'll talk about those later. So, let's start with the song, and maybe I'll break down section by section what instruments are playing and the processing and everything. Yeah, blue drums and red guitar, that's the Guitar Pro habit from 15 years ago, or maybe even 20. So I think the bass was yellow in a Guitar Pro, but never mind. So the song starts, and I think, yeah, I can't play the source tune. Actually, I don't want to risk it, but the source starts with synths, a synth bass and an organ, and I've also used an organ, and instead of synth bass I used the cellos, actually the low strings. I think this has a wrong name on it. This should be low strings. Let me just do something. Okay, this will be useful. So, as I said, the song starts with some low strings and organ, but the organ is the main thing here. And this is a real nice sounding library, and it's a cheap one. It's Lakeside Pipe Organ by Sound Iron, and I haven't used it much, but it sounds great, and it was really useful in this song. And like I said, sounds great. So I just wanted to do a quick note of how I have things routed here. So I have my contact inputs here on the mixer, on the track panel, and I also have the outputs, but they are in a folder and minimized, and I have the outputs down here, so all the inputs are routed in the contact, and then contact is routed to the outputs. So this track, I forgot to name them here, but this is linked so to this contact organ output, and not much going on. So this is just some EQ. Here you can see. So I have this low cut, and I've actually automated that, so it starts more bassy in the intro, but as soon as the guitars and the rest of the instruments drop in, this goes a bit higher. Wait, let me see. I don't think it follows my... you can see here. So it went from 150 Hz to 200. I don't really need all the organ low end, except for that intro when there's not much going on. A bit of a boost here at 1K, and I've gotten rid of some of the highs here, and just a little bit of compression, as you can hear. So just the organ is sometimes playing chords, sometimes single notes, so this compression is just to make it a bit even. And we have the strings. Let me check those. Low strings. So, the orchestral library I used here is Metropolis Arc 1 by Orchestral Tools. It doesn't have any woodwinds, I think, but I didn't need them anyway. So these are the low strings. They are all in one library, in one patch. So cellos and basses, I think, are in this patch, and the high string patch has the violas, the violins 1 and 2. So I used this is a simple line, just following the chords, basically. A minor, going into E, into F, into E. Starts with a crescendo. I don't know if you guys can see, but I've organized my orchestral presets to have all the key switches here in Reaper piano roll view. I've named them, so I don't need to search every time to find which key switch does what. So these are all the articulations I have. So like I said, starts with a crescendo, then goes just to sustains, and at the same time we have some high strings going, and the articulation I used here, blurred spiccato, and it's just sort of a horror string sound. I don't know how to describe it. Wait, so yeah, a bit of a psycho thing going on. And I mean, there are just those three. So just strings on organ in the intro. Articulations, well, this library has key switches, so I'm using them. Some libraries have separate patches for each articulation, so then you need to load each patch into Contact, and yeah, this I used to prefer different patches for different articulations, but once I got more organized, now key switches are completely fine with me, so I just switch articulations. And if you need, you will really rarely need two articulations at the same time, but that's why I have articulations split into long and short and legato. So for example, here you can see I have these these are all long notes, and for example here, I think, no, this is the short. Here I have the short articulations. So if for some reason I need long and short notes at the same time, I can work around that. Okay. Now, next, everything else in the song drops, but before everything else drops, I have this bassy synth just sort of as a build-up before the actual song. And it's a neat little effect, automated the volume to get the glitchy sound. And that's the only time this synth appears in the whole song, as you can see. So, now, this is where everything comes together. So, now it's gonna get ugly. Let's start with the bass. So this is my wait, the wrong track. Just a tuner, and this is my tool of choice, the SEBOD. I've been using this on every single song for years now. It's just a plug-in version of an, I think the actual pedal exists. Yeah, so this blend knob, I think it switches between Okay, so completely to the right is just a sort of a DI sound, and completely to the left is a sort of a amp sim sound. But I prefer this one, and this just adds a bit of extra grit to it. Yeah, so then comes the EQ, and as you can see, it's a bit messy, but I can explain. So let me get this. Low cut at 30. The lowest note I play in this is a B, so a cut at 30 at B is fine. A little of a bit of a boost here, just so it meshes with the kick well. A cut here, there are some boomy frequencies. Oh, hi Tony. Boomy frequencies around 170, so I get rid of those. And plus some guitar, some low guitar low end is there, so yeah, a bit of a mid cut here, boosting highs, and then I have some nasty resonance here around 3k, 3.5k, and I don't need this high end, so I just get rid of it completely. This all goes into a compressor, and as you can see, it's crushing a lot. I like my bass to be flat. And finally going into a limiter to catch, going into a limiter last to catch some peaks. But yeah, the compressor does most of the work, and as you can see, it doesn't sound, even though it's decreasing by like 15 decibels, it doesn't sound too squashed. Yeah, bass needs to be crushed. Bass needs to be crushed definitely. So, yeah. Now let's move on to the guitars. I have only double track guitars. I rarely quad track guitars, so it's always double tracking, and here I have just a gate going into amp box into a Mesa sim with overdrive, with a distortion pedal in front, gain set to low, level set to high, tone set a bit high to cut through, and this is how they sound. Excuse my sloppy rhythm playing, but those two guitars, as you can see here, they don't have any processing other than the gate on this track. Instead, I process them both. The amp settings are, I think, a bit different on each side, but I only have an EQ here, and it's just basics. I'm getting rid of the low end below B1. I'm getting rid of the high end, which I don't need, and I have other stuff going there, organ overtones, strings, and other stuff to cover the high end. So just a little boost here to make it cut, a dip in the middle to make space for other guitars and other lead instruments, and a boost here. I've mentioned I made a cut in the bass, and this is around the same range in the guitars, so to make them mesh well. And just to see, this is the bass and the guitars going together. my playing is a bit sloppy, but you can see they blend really nicely, and you can hear both. So that's what I'm always trying to get, and I think I succeeded this time. So next, let's move on to the orchestra stuff. Like I said, what I'm using here is Metropolis Arc 1, and I love the brass sounds on this, like the trombones, bass trombones. But once you combine everything, now, one problem I have with this library, and I'm still working on it, each track, each instrument has a different delay at the start of the sample. So I actually have to set my tracks. Here you can see I have a negative offset of minus 40 samples, minus 40 milliseconds, and I'm still trying to find out exact values for each track. So even the orchestra sounds a bit sloppy if you listen to it on its own. I don't know, maybe that adds a bit of the charm to it. So, throughout this whole song, I have the trombones, the cymbasi, and the tubas playing the same thing in different octaves, so they're just doubling each other. I have some horns going on later and trumpets. And the strings are doing some staccato lines here. Now, I have a confession to make. I have no idea how to write for an orchestra, so I'm just using orchestral elements to fill out empty space that I would otherwise use synths or other instruments for, pianos, I don't know. Yeah, so if you just listen to the orchestral track of this song alone, it's kind of empty, sucks, but it fits well in the mix, and that's all that matters to me. So yeah, now next up in the song, this is after the intro. Well, I don't know. I mean, it works for my stuff, but yeah, I would love if I could write. I would love it if I could be able to write more complex stuff. I need to start utilizing these libraries better. But anyway, next up in this song is where the lead guitars come in. And I have a bunch of lead guitar tracks. Wait, no, this is the first one that comes in. So yeah, I'm quite happy with the sound I got on this song, my tone and everything. So as you can see, the processing on all my lead guitars is kind of similar. I I use the Mesa sim on the rhythms, but on leads I mostly use the 800. This is Mercurial Spark. You can see just I have some gates, a bit of chorus, yeah, and for delay I'm using Native Instruments replica. Different delays on each side, and EQ getting rid of the lows and this lower mids, and just boosting some high end. I mean, there's lots of going on in the low end, so just making some space. And the rest of the guitars have similar processing. Wait, this is the one I just opened. Where is the other one? Yeah, this lead is, for example, Euphoria, another Mercurial plugins. I'm a 100% Mercurial guy when it comes to amps, and similar processing here, except the EQ is a bit different, but this guitar is playing different lines. So yeah, a bit less gain. So, and we have these dual leads which play octaves. And this is another, I've used the Mesa because I really needed a thin sound. And I think both of these guitars have the exact same amp settings, and they are going through the same EQ, and this is a simple EQ, just getting rid of some nasty frequencies in the highs, boosting a bit of highs here, and getting rid of all the junk stuff I don't need. Yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to lead. I have another lead coming on in later, which I'll explain. So while I'm here, maybe I can start with a bit of drums, so you guys can see what's going on with the drums. I don't know if you can notice, but these drums don't sound as huge when they're on their own. So the key thing is to mesh them well with everything else in the song. So every element can add to the illusion of a huge sound. And as for the drum processing, so I have a Superior Drummer kit. I don't know, I think I found some preset. Yeah, just some basic kit, Progressive Foundry clean. I think the snare is from the bass library. The default Superior Drummer library, and I've routed everything so. There are two kick tracks, the in and out microphone, one snare track, wait, let me just zoom in. Yeah, kick, snare, hat, toms, overheads, rooms, mono, underkit, everything that Superior Drummer offers. Now, explaining my chain is a bit tricky, because I made this preset like 2 years ago, and I'm just doing minor edits on it every time I make a song. But the gist of it goes so. Everything, all the drum tracks, so 2 kicks are routed to 1 kick track. Everything, so the kick, the snare, everything is routed to the drums out, except for the overheads. the overheads go directly to the no compression channel. So there's a little bit of compression on the overheads, but not much, and it goes further to a track which has no compression on it. Everything else goes through this track, which has a lot of compression on it, and then both of these tracks, no comp and comp, are routed to one track, which just has some simple EQ and a limiter on it. So let's repeat if I can remember. So everything except the overheads goes into a compression channel. Just the overheads don't go into a compression, but they do have some little compression on them and some EQ. Yeah, so as for each individual track, so on the drum mic tracks I just have some EQ. Wait, yeah, this is the kick and compression, and then those both go into a gate and more compression, so there are like 4 layers of compression here on individual drum mics, on the kick, individual kick mics, the kick, some bus, then this compression, global compression, and then the final limiter. So multiple layers. I've experimented with this for years, and this is the solution I came up with. It doesn't sound perfect, but it's good enough for my taste. Kind of a similar thing with the snare, so compression goes into this compression, then into the final track. Toms also have, I think I have some tom EQ and the compression even in the Superior Drummer plugin, but like I said, I just use some presets, so the settings are not preset. I'm not that familiar with them. But here some EQ, got rid of the excessive low end and did some compression. Same with, so the overheads I already said they have a little compression and some EQ. Now the room mic, I forgot to mention this, and while I'm at the room mics I'll add it. So room mics are routed to the reverb channel, and everything else in the song, so the room mics and everything else, so the guitars, bass, synths, orchestra, is routed to this reverb channel. What this does is make it seem like everything is in the same room. So it's barely noticeable, but I've noticed it adds a ton of flavor to the song. So this is just a plate reverb, short pre-delay, short decay, bit of extra width, and cutting off everything under 500 hertz, getting rid of some highs to make it less harsh, and the volume isn't that much, but how do I make the snare punch hard? Yeah, it's just compression. Like I said, I can't give you any specifics on what you need to use, but like I said, I've toyed with these settings for years, and you can see here my snare EQ is a big mess. And I also have a snare reverb track, which is a big room preset, and EQ cutting off the lows, which I don't need. But with the snare, another thing is some of the sound also comes from the overheads and the room mics, so once everything comes together, so this is why you have to mix both each element individually and everything together as a whole, because you can see here the overheads and the room mics really add a ton of character to the snare, and that's a key thing which I used to pay no attention to that, but once I started paying attention, it paid off. You can hear once I start eliminating individual stuff, like you can hear when I removed that compression there, it completely changed the sound. So like I said, these aren't specifics which may work for everyone, but I've worked on this sound for years, and this is what I've come with, my solution to the drum mix problem. It's probably a bad solution, there are probably better solutions, but it works for me, and that's all I need. So let's continue on with the arrangement. One thing I forgot to add, this part is really fun to play. Wait, just a second. Let me see if this works. Let me pick a guitar track. Just a second. Can't nail it now. Wait. Yeah. I need more practice. So yeah, what I have going on here on the bass, I'm not doubling the guitars. Instead of I'm just doing some dancey lines. Let me see if, yeah, just the bass and the drums. The guitar effects are, well, the EQs are Pro Q. I mean, the tools don't matter, just the chain. So you'd want amps, then EQ, then delays and stuff like that. I mean, the order, you can put the EQ on the end, but no, those are not contact plugins. The only contact thing I use is this here, these two instruments, so the organ and the harpsichord. But yeah, some of the delays are native instruments, so those are the same guys who make contact. Okay, so that was the guitars. Next up comes this this synth was played live. So, yeah, this just more of the same, except for the synth. I thought about using a theremin here, but I didn't have time to look for any patches, so I just grabbed something similar, a similar preset, and went with that. Sounds okay. I'm not gonna change it. And that's pretty much it. I think I went over all of the individual instruments. Yeah, this synth just has some EQ on it since the preset already has delay. I'm gonna get rid of the high end so to make it less harsh. So next up, so this here is an interesting thing I did with this section. So this previous part has kind of a bass solo, which is there in the source tune except played by a synth. So, in the source tune, this section goes off into something empty, but instead I wanted to go to a guitar solo, and since the bass solo ends on an E, but the chord underneath is A minor, I added a slight offbeat start to the solo. So there is one bar where the bass plays an E, then goes down to A, and the drums delay the start of the beat by one bar. Same with everything else. The guitars, the rhythm guitars. Yeah, this is the guitar solo. Doing my best Sixta with a broken arm impression. I don't know if I covered this guitar, but here I used this is just Euphoria, going through some EQ and a little bit of compression. Just to get the harmonics and everything else on the same level. And not much going on with the solo, except this last part of the solo. I wrote this extra bit. And here I've doubled it, both on the rhythm guitars and these strings and the harpsichord. spice things up a bit. I didn't want rhythms to be playing the same thing throughout the whole section. And here I've just doubled the organ with this spooky pad. Just for a little bit of extra flavor, since there's not much going on in this section. And then the next section contains my secret weapon. Sounds a bit iffy with legato, but I've hidden it with other instruments. This is the Orchestral Tools solo opera, going through just a low cut since it sounds pretty good on its own, although I probably should have decreased the highs a little, and through some compression because the highs and lows have wildly different volumes, and you can see there's really a ton of compression. So then there's a repeat of the first section of the song, which goes into an outro. With another opera sound and another ending solo. There's this fade out for just these guitar tracks because of the delay tail, which I didn't want in there. This is a small addition, but it adds a so yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to the whole arrangement. Yeah, a nice spooky vibe overall, and that's it. Now, one thing I forgot to talk about, but I left it for last, is the master chain. So, what I usually do, this is the new Ozone 10, but I had the same workflow since Ozone 8, I think 8 was the first one I used. I run the assistant to get a general idea of what needs to be done. And let's go through what each of these modules does individually. So, low end focus is a tool which the name pretty much says it. Just a bit of low end enhancement. As you can see, I increased this basically increases the contrast between the low energy and high energy content, so bass, kicks, and when there's nothing going on, and a little bit of a boost and a punchy algorithm. Uh, the difference is really subtle, but you can hear it if I disable this. Let me find a busier section. A bit of a CPU hiccup. So yeah, that was the low end focus. Then I added an exciter, and it's just some subtle tape compression, tape saturation actually. So just the high end and a really small amount, just a bit of extra spice. Now this is a new ozone module, and I have no idea what it's doing, but these are the settings that the assistant suggested, so I'm going with them. Same with this impact module, didn't touch that, kept what the assistant suggested. I need still to figure out what these two are doing, but these are new to me, so I didn't want to experiment much. So, imager, another key part of my mastering chain. So, you can see here I have different frequency bands. So this is at 100 Hertz, about 2K and 10K. So what I'm doing is narrowing down the low end, mid-range keeping the same, and a little bit of widening on the high end. I do this on almost every song, and again, it's just to add a bit of spice and cleaning up the low end, although there's not much actually going on. In the very low end. Now, this is another thing I keep from the assistant suggestion. So these are basically the frequencies where there's most content that affects the final limiter. So these four bands help keep the final limiter from not pumping too much. And as you can see, let me find a section of So basically the only thing that's getting squashed with this master limiter are the drum peaks. And these are just some basic settings. The modern algorithm, I've put the threshold to a nice amount because I had a lot of headroom to work with. And to keep things in check, I use this metering thing, and this is the T-Rex metering, and you can see here I use the perceived loudness to navigate. This is the suggestion for metal. You can see for metal a good perceived loudness is about 10, minus 10 dB LUFS, and you can see I keep it within that range, so even though it's loud, if the perceived loudness is within these green lines, it's gonna be pleasant to the ear, at least to my ear. And that's something I go by with on every song. And that's pretty much it. I I think I went through everything that exists in this song. So, any questions? Do you do anything particular in the master? Yeah, just this what I explained. Although sometimes I do use BX refinement, which is a harshness reduction plugin. I sometimes use this, but I didn't feel the need to use it on this song. This just reduces the harshness a little. It is pleasant to my ear. Yeah, I mean, you probably saw, but with a lot of tracks, I got rid of the excessive low end, excessive high end. Uh, the high end can be detrimental to a song, but you can always make up for it with adding elements to the arrangement in the high end. I don't know, pads, strings, anything that covers the high end, but sounds pleasant. And I feel like even this some tape saturation helps smooth it out a bit. Yeah. So, no other questions? And then I think we're pretty much done. Uh, if you want me to go extra specific with something, I can do it. I've explained the reverbs. Oh yeah, I have this guitar reverb. I don't know if I explained this one, but some of the guitars are just routed here. So I have both reverb and delay going on. And yeah, that's it. That's all there is to this song. Uh, to be honest, I didn't take uh, the mixing. The mixing didn't take me too much time because I'm already used to this style. I have plenty of presets for tracks, so minor tweaking. I did minor tweaking on most of it, and yeah. Uh, how many tracks in total? Uh, Tracks in total, I think there are about 160 tracks on this one. I usually have around 150 to 200, but I'd say at least 50, at least 40 here are useless and are just leftovers from my presets. How do I fix a clicky kick? Huh. Just a second. Let's see if we can make this kick clicky and then make it unclicky. So the clickiness most likely comes from the inside mic. You can see here it mostly comes down to the sample, the clicky kick. I would have to. I don't want to open another project because then my audio to OBS would cut. But yeah, it comes down to the sample. But if it's already clicky, I'd say around maybe around 3000 hertz, 3500. that's where the most of the click is. Somewhere around here, maybe. That's what clicky means. So I don't know how to describe, because I've been using these terms describing my own stuff for a long time, but the components of a kick are a boom, a smack, and a click. So the boom would be the low to low mid range, smack would be the mids and just the mids, not the higher mids are already in the click range. So yeah, you need to balance those three. Not too much boom, just enough smack, and just enough click. If that's the best way to explain it, but compression can also play a part with those, since I know fast attack compression tends to get rid of the low end of the boom, but you have to be careful because you still want the low end to be there. So yeah, that's another factor. And then you can also run your kick through something like saturation, which adds high end, but can also help if you narrow it down to a band, can help get you rid of the click. So I need to tackle a specific sample to be able to tell you more details about for that.